We all want our children to be successful, but what does it take? How can you help your child to have the qualities necessary to thrive in our modern world? In this video, I want to share my thoughts on what does and doesn't work when it comes to raising happy, independent children. And I'm going to give you some practical tips to take away. So let's get started. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I have been a clinical psychologist for almost 25 years, and I have worked with thousands and thousands of families around the world, kids, young adults, teenagers. And every once in a while, people will ask me about trends. They will say, they will ask me like, is there anything that you have noticed over the years? One of the commonalities that I have definitely seen is the inability for some of our kids to cope with their emotions. So many kids, I would say especially in the last 5 to 10, 15 years, so many kids cannot cope well with life stresses. They get overwhelmed and they are not resilient. So when I think of what it means to raise successful children, like what works and what doesn't work, I think of the ability of our kids to face and do difficult things, to cope. And the ability to cope has a profound impact on our sense of self-esteem and our sense of self-confidence. So for example, when I do something really difficult, meaning that when I cope with something, I will inherently feel really proud of myself. When I face a challenging task, something that makes me nervous or uncomfortable, and I do it anyways because it's important to me, I feel good about who I am. When we do difficult things, this means we are coping. And when we cope, we inherently like and approve of who we are. But when I avoid, I don't feel good about myself. When we don't face difficult things, when we give up, when we chicken out, when we avoid, we inherently don't approve of who we are. So for kids, it can be doing anything difficult, including hard homework, algebra, hard math, whatever, writing an essay, it doesn't matter. The rule of thumb is that when we cope, we feel good about who we are. And when we avoid, we feel poorly about who we are. In fact, think of the last time you did something that took some courage. How did you feel about yourself in that moment? I've asked people this question in groups many times over the years, and we get these universally similar responses. When you ask people to think about the last time you did something that took courage or that required you to face something that was difficult, when you ask people that, they use the word strong or some word like that. They feel strong, they feel capable, they like themselves, they approve of themselves. When you think about the last time you chickened out with something that you avoided that was difficult, it could be maybe a confrontation with somebody, or it could be something at work that was difficult, anything that you avoided. How did you feel about yourself? When we ask this of groups of people, they also say the same thing. They use the word weak. So when we cope, we feel strong. When we avoid, we feel weak. Self-esteem fundamentally is a matter of coping and avoidance. So to build self-esteem in your children, to build happy, emotionally strong, resilient children, to build children that are going to be successful, it's okay to give them compliments and praise, but don't kid yourself and think that's going to give them the positive self-esteem they need to be responsible and successful someday. So think of this. When you're trying to raise successful children, remember these key principles. Number one, teach, require, and reinforce their ability to do difficult things, to cope with things they would rather avoid. This is just a matter of being able to face difficulties and cope with them. Don't solve problems for them. As parents, we're naturally inclined to want to protect our kids from pain, which is generally a good thing. But sometimes this leads us to try and solve their problems for them, which is not a good thing. Disappointment and suffering are a natural part of life, and so we can't shield our kids from all of it, nor should we. If we do, we leave them woefully unprepared to cope with life after leaving our homes, if they leave at all. So don't do for them what they can and should do for themselves. I can tell you from personal experience how this has benefited my own kids. My second daughter was so shy as a child that she could not talk to anybody outside of her family. We used to take her to a restaurant and I would bribe her that if she could order her own food, I would pay her, and she couldn't do it. She would just end up in tears. And then when she got older, she decided that she wanted to spend 18 months as a missionary for our church. And this would actually require her to go out into a community and actually talk to people. It would require her to be sociable, to deal with uncomfortable situations. It would require her to go way out of her comfort zone. And I'm telling you what an amazing transformation that was for her. She is now this confident and very socially skilled young adult. Before we move on to the next points, I want to thank you for watching this video. Are you struggling to communicate with your child or to discipline them effectively? None of us are handed a manual when our kids are born with all the rules and steps that we should take. We learn by trial and error. That's what this channel is about. It's about using my system of correcting and connecting to build a strong, trusting, and influential relationship with your child. If that's the kind of thing you want to know more about, then like this video and subscribe to my channel, and then share this with all of your friends. Now let's get back to the video. My other daughter went through some very painful, and I might even say traumatic experiences during her last year of high school. She played on a volleyball team that had some very difficult dynamics, and her greatest weakness was her mental toughness. She would just fall apart under pressure. Well, what she went through that year was very painful, and it was painful for all of us, her parents, to experience this with her, but she did go through it, and she did work on this weakness of mental toughness. I was just telling her the other day that I can't believe how different she is now with mental toughness. This actually went from being an absolute weakness to now being one of her greatest strengths as an athlete. And she will tell you that this happened because of all the difficult things she faced in the year prior and all the work that she put into improving herself in this area. So my point is, we have to allow our kids to suffer and grow from experience, because this is the laboratory where resilience and self-esteem is cultivated. Number 2, turn your children's attention inward. And what I mean by that is that when your kids do difficult things, when they cope, turn their attention inward so they're not just focusing on your approval. Help them see their own self-approval. Help them see how they inherently feel proud of themselves for doing something difficult. You can just say simple things like, when you did put yourself out there and ran for class president, how did you feel about yourself for doing something like that? They may have felt scared, but I'm telling you, when we put ourselves out there, when we're courageous, when we cope and do difficult things, we feel strong and they will feel strong. And so you want to turn their attention inward so they recognize those feelings about themselves. That's what we want. We want them recognizing their own feelings of strength, their own feelings of self-approval, and that they can do difficult things. Are you looking for a more effective way to connect with your child and build long-term positive influence? Maybe your child is misbehaving or going through a difficult phase and you struggle to know how to discipline them, or even sometimes just how to reach them at all. My name is Dr. Todd Corelli, and I've spent the last 25 years as a clinical psychologist working primarily with children, adolescents, young adults, and families. I've worked with thousands of families around the world, and I've seen the challenges facing our families today. That's why I've created a 4-part video series that is completely free to watch and available online for immediate viewing. This helps parents become much more effective at bonding with and positively influencing their children. This system is completely unique and highly effective. I have seen this system benefit my own family and many others, and I want your family to have this too. So just click on the link in the video description below, or you can go to correctandconnect.com, enter your details, click the button, and I will send you immediate access.